Hey, it's Ashlee from Smart Addition Academy, and in today's video, we have another HESI practice test for math. This is our practice test number 2 from our online course. I will go through each question and you can follow along while I solve it. If you would like to follow along with me, please check out the description of this video for links to our practice tests, along with other free practice materials. Also, we have our HESI online course, our full HESI bootcamp, and our HESI online Facebook group. Okay, so let's jump into it today with practice test number 2. Okay, so we have 50 questions and we have 50 minutes, so we've got our work cut out for us. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so equations with one variable. Solve the equation for the unknown. Okay, so we want to try to get x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. 4x equals 8 minus 3 is 5, and divide by 4. So x equals 5/4. So sometimes we'll have to turn this into a mixed number, but it looks like my answer is right here, so I don't have to do anything else. How many dogs are necessary to make a cat-to-dog ratio of 3:2? So cat-to-dog ratio. Cats come first, and then the dogs, in an area with 1,425 cats. So let's write our ratio as a fraction, and that has to be equal to, it has to maintain the same ratio as, let's see, 1,425 cats. Cats go on top over X amount of dogs, okay? So from here, we can do some cross multiplication. So 3x would equal 2,850. And you can use a calculator, so make sure you are using a calculator to save yourself some time. Last step is just to divide by 3, and you will find that x equal 950, so there will have to be 950 dogs to maintain the same ratio. Okay, let's convert milliliters to quarts. Okay, so milliliters to quarts. We know, let's see, 1 liter has 1.06 quarts. So this is something that you need to know, a conversion you need to know. Let's turn milliliters into liters, and then this might help us. So swoop your decimal 3 times to the left. So we want to know 0.75 liters is equal to how many quarts? Okay, so what we have to do here is just take our liters and multiply it by 1.06. So 0.75 times 1.06 will give us about 0.79 quarts. So which one of these is closest? 0.79. Okay, 0.795. You can go close enough. All right, let's subtract 2 1/4 minus 1/5. So 2 1/4 minus 1/5. I like to turn these into improper fractions and then worry about it. So 2 times 4 is 8. Plus 1 more is 9. So 9/4 minus 1/5. When we subtract fractions, we need to make sure we have a common denominator. So let's do 20 as our common denominator. 4 times 5 is 20. So 9 times 5, that gives me 45. 5 times 4 is 20, and 1 times 4 is 4. So 45/20 minus 4/20 would be 41/20. And let's turn it into a mixed number. 20 goes into 41 twice with 1 left over. So 2 1/20 would be our solution. Okay, now we have to divide some mixed numbers. So again, before we get started, I'm going to turn these into improper fractions. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 more is 5. So 5/3 divided by 12 times 3 is 36, plus 7 would be 43/12. Okay, so when I divide fractions, I want to think of fried chicken. KCF tells me to keep, change to multiplication, and then flip. Okay, so I could just multiply across the top and across the bottom. I think I'm going to cross cancel first, though, which means I'm looking for something that the top and the bottom have a factor that they share. So 3 and 12 share a factor of 3. So divide each of these by 3. And now I can go across. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 43 is just 43. And that's it. I can't simplify it. And there's my answer, 20/43. Okay, here's an order of operations question for us. We need to use PEMDAS. So this would be the order in which we will do our operation. So start in your parentheses, 7 plus 5, and then in 1 plus 4 would be, or 1 plus 3 would be 4. Okay, so I did my parentheses. There's no exponents. Now let's multiply these numbers, 7 plus 20 minus 9. And then addition and subtraction, I just work left to right. So 7 plus 20 is 27 minus 9. That would give me 18. So 18 would be what happens when I evaluate this expression. Okay, let's solve this ratio. So what this is saying is that 2 to 5 is the same as 132x. So I can set up a proportion with these ratios. So turn them into fractions. So 2 over 5 is going to be equal to 130 over x. Okay, so from here, I like to cross multiply to solve these. 2x is going to be equal to 650, and then I can just divide by 2 to find the missing part of my proportion. So 650 divided by 2 would be 325. Evaluate the expression, 9.8 divided by 0.8. So just plug this right into your calculator, and when you do so, we should get 12.25. 12.25. Okay, what is 100 in your 12-hour clock time? So 12-hour clock time, we're going from military to our 12-hour clock. We're going to look at these first two numbers, and since they are 12 or less, okay, we don't have to change anything. And because it's less than 12, we know it's AM. So this is really just 1 AM. This is 1 in the morning, 1 AM. There it is. Okay, here's another algebraic equation to solve. 15x plus 30 equals 150. So we're going to get rid of our addition first, move that over. So 15x would equal 120. And then when I divide by 15, I will get x equals 12 divided by 15 would be 8. X equals 8. Okay, what is 15% of 120? So 15% of 120, the easiest way to do this is to turn your percent into a decimal. So swoop it to the left twice. So that's 0.15. And multiply it by the number 120. So 0.15 times 120 will give me 18. So 15% of 120 is 18. Let me move. There we go. Move that out of the way for a second. A doctor writes a prescription for 3 grams of medicine, but a pharmacist must fill the order using milligrams. So we're given grams and we need to use milligrams. What will the medicine dosage be? So to go from grams to milligrams, it's important to know that in 1 gram, there are 1,000 milligrams. So in 3 grams, we just have to multiply by 1,000. So that would be 3,000 milligrams. Okay, so 3,000. Okay, let's just move me back up here. There we go. Okay. Let's write 140.5% as a decimal. So we just did a question where we had to do this before. To go from a percent to a decimal, we're going to swoop to the left twice. So 1.455 would be that written as a decimal. So don't get confused just because they give you a percent that has a decimal. We still need to swoop it twice. Solve for the value of x. 8 is to 5 as x is to 95. So again, we have a proportion we can set up. 8/5 is equal to x over 95. Okay, so from here, let's do some cross multiplication. So 8 times 95 would be 760, and that will equal 5x. So just divide each side by 5, and we will get 152 equals x. 152 equals x. Let's check out the next one. Okay, dividing looks like a mixed number with a fraction. Again, I'm going to turn these into improper fractions, or the first one into an improper fraction at least. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 6 is 13. So 13 sevenths divided by 3 fourteenths. So remember, think fried chicken, KCF. So keep the first one, change division to multiplication, and then flip the second one. So again, I'm going to cross cancel just so I don't have to simplify so much later. So looks like 7 and 14. I can divide each of those by 7. So 13 times 2 on the top and just 1 times 3 on the bottom. So from here, 26 thirds I can turn into a mixed number. 3 goes into 26 8 times. That would be 24. So I'd have 2 left over. 8 and 2 thirds. Okay, let's convert miles to kilometers. So 1 mile, let's see, is equal to, so if you can remember, there's 1.61 kilometers in a mile. This could be really helpful. So this is not one conversion that we typically see all the time, but it's something that could be helpful if you can remember it. So all we have to do is take our 18 and multiply it by 1.61. So 18 times 1.61 will give us 28.98 kilometers. 28.98 kilometers. Okay, next question. Evaluate the expression. This is a great one to practice our order of operations. So PEMDAS. So important for us to remember that even though when we use this, M becomes before D, multiplication and division we use just from left to right, and addition and subtraction the same. So let's start with our parentheses. 81 divided by 9 is 9. So we have 5 squared plus 9 divided by 3. So now I'm going to do my exponent. 5 squared is 25. So 25 plus 9 divided by 3. So next is division. 25 plus 9 divided by 3 is just 3. 25 plus 3 will give me 28. Okay, so when we work through this problem and evaluate it, we get 28. All right, let's solve for x, another algebraic equation for us to solve. So let's work towards getting x by itself. First thing I want to do is subtract 12 from both sides. So I have negative 7x equals negative 30 minus 12 would give me a negative 42. So when I divide by negative 7, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So 42 divided by 7 would be 6. So we would have positive 6 as our solution. Notice how they do give you negative 6 as your answer, so make sure you remember those integer rules and also check in your calculator when in doubt. Convert 12% to a decimal. I'm seeing this one come up a lot, so important for us to remember. All we have to do, swoop to the left twice. That also is the same thing as just dividing by 100, if that feels helpful. So this should be 0.12. Okay, 12% as a decimal, 0.12. All right. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius or how many degrees Fahrenheit? So this may be one where you just remember that 0 degrees Celsius is equal to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. that might be helpful. If that is not something that you have memorized, then we can just plug it into our formula. This is something that you do also need to know. Fahrenheit is equal to 9/5 Celsius plus 32 degrees. So notice if we plug in 0 here, 9/5 times 0, that's going to just cancel out to be 0. So you will just get 32. Okay, so 32 is our answer. Evaluate the expression to the nearest hundredth. So 21 hundredths times 48 hundredths. When I multiply this on my calculator, I get 0.1008. So to the nearest hundredth, I want to go to this decimal place. So to the nearest hundredth, it looks like this one, this 0 here tells me to stay. So 0.10. Okay, which is the same as 0.1. Okay, so 0.1 will be our solution. The trailing 0 doesn't make a difference for this one. All right, let's solve for x. So another one of these questions where we are going to set up a proportion. So 6/7 is going to be equal to x over 98. So again, I choose to cross multiply for these. So 6 times 98, 7 times x. Okay, so you're going to get 588 equals 7x. And then from here, we're just going to divide by 7, and we should get that x is equal to 84. X is equal to 84. Okay, a nurse is instructed to give a patient 1.5 liters of fluid while they recover from a medical procedure. How many milliliters will that patient receive? So there are 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So if we have 1.5 liters, we just need to multiply that by 1,000. So 1.5 times 1,000 would be 1,500 milliliters. A toy company manufactures 2 cycles of a toy with the same percentage of error for each production cycle. If they make 450 toys and 45 have errors, how many toys will be made in error? They only made 300 toys in the second cycle. So there's going to be the same percentage of error. So we're going to have, let's see, it said 45 out of the 450 toys. Okay, and that percentage is going to be the same as how many toys out of only 300. So you may see this pretty easily, that 45 out of 450 is just 10%. So the same percentage error would be 10% of 300, which is just 30. And if that is not apparent to you, that is okay. We could go through and cross multiply with the proportion I set up and see if you get the same thing. So go ahead and give that a shot if you'd like. Pause the video and see if you can get 30 as your answer. If a company's revenue changes from 123 million to 118 million in a month, how quickly is it increasing in a year? So the change from 123 million to 118 million is actually negative. Looks like we're decreasing, so negative 5 million a month. So not looking so hot. How quickly is it increasing over a year? Well, definitely going to be negative. So if this is per month, we just have to multiply this by 12. Because there's 12 months in a year. So negative 5 times 12 should give me negative 60 million over the course of the year. Okay, the number 32 is 8% of what value? So 2 different ways that we could do this. You could take 32 and divide it by, you got to just turn 8% into a decimal, swoop it twice, so 0.08. So you could do 32 divided by 0.08, plug that right in your calculator, or we could set up a proportion where 32 is the part out of what value is what we're trying to find, so let's call it x. That has to be equal to 8%, which is the same as 8 over 100. So either one of these strategies will get you there. So you could cross multiply the proportion to solve. Either way, you should find that we get 400. So 32 is 8% of 400. Let's change 7/4 to a percent. So when we have a fraction, it's really just a division problem. So we can plug 7 divided by 4 into our calculator, and we will get 1.75. Now, to turn this number into a percent, we're going to multiply it by 100. Okay, so when we turn this into a decimal, multiply by 100, this should give me 175%. Solve for the value of y when x equals 3. Okay, so we have this equation here. We want to solve for y when x equals 3. So we're going to plug in 3 for x. So this is 3 squared plus 4 minus 2. This is really just an order of operations question. So we have to do our exponent first because that's within the parentheses. So make sure you do this first. 3 squared is 9. So then I can do 9 plus 4. And after I do 9 plus 4, I can subtract 2. So 9 plus 4 is 13. And 13 minus 2 will give me 11. So when I evaluate this function, I will get 11. 13 minus 2 is 11. Okay, let's add some fractions. 1/5 plus 2/3. So remember, in order to add fractions, we want to have a common denominator. So a quick way to get a common denominator is just to multiply. So 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 can be our denominator. And 1/5 is equal to 5 times 3 got me to 15. So 1 times 3. And then 2/3, 3 times 5 got me to 15, so 2 times 5 is 10. And when we add 3/15 plus 10/15, we will get 13/15. Okay, here's another order of operations. This is a great one for you to try on your own. If you want to pause the video, give this one a shot, and then come back and we can check. So order of operations, we're going to do the parentheses first, but I have that exponent within there. So let's simplify that. 4 squared is 16. Divide by 2. And then we have a minus 6 at the end. So now I can work through my parenthesis of 16 divided by 2 is 8. And then we have a minus 6. So now addition and subtraction, just work left to right. 5 plus 8 is 13. 13 minus 6 is my last step. So 13 minus 6. Okay, so 13 minus 6 will give me 7. Solve for the variable. 121 minus 12 equals -1. So we want to get z. 121 divided by z minus 12 equals -1. Sorry if I said that wrong before. To get z by itself, first thing I want to do is add 12 to both sides. Okay, so I'm going to have 121 over z on the left, and then on the right I have -1 plus 12, which is 11. Okay, so from here, essentially what I have is 121 divided by something is equal to 11. So if you know what that something is, then you're good to go. And if not, let's just cross multiply here, and looks like we'll just have to do a little division. So 121 is equal to 11 times z. So let's just divide each side by 11. So essentially 121 divided by 11 will give me my z value, which is equal to 11, because 11 times 11 is 121. Okay, a patient's fever is 102. Convert the temperature to the Celsius scale. So we need our formula. So Celsius, C, is equal to 5/9. And then in parentheses, important that we have this in parentheses, the Fahrenheit temperature minus 32, because we have to do that first. So essentially all we have to do is plug in our 102 in for Fahrenheit. So we are going to subtract that first. So we essentially have to do 5/9 times 102 minus 32 would just be 70. So 5/9 times 70. And when you multiply that out, 5/9 times 70 will give me about 39. So 39 degrees Celsius would be my temperature in Celsius. Okay, let's identify 2:36:38 p.m. in military time. So because this is p.m., okay, it's after just our noon time, we have to add 12 to our hour. So 2 plus 12 would be 14. Okay, so our hour is actually 14 in military time. The 36 and the 38 stay the same. Okay, we just want to have our colon here. So 14:36, and then this 38 seconds stays the same. So 14:36:38. There it is. Okay, we are cruising right along here. Let's check out our next question. If a company's automobile fleet includes 132 cars of brand A and 48 cars of brand B, what is the fleet's ratio of B to A? So important that we have our ratio in the right order. So B is 48. Okay, and A is 132. So 48 to 132. Companies automobile brand A and 48 cars brand B. What is the fleet's ratio of B to A? So 48 to 132. So now we just have to try to simplify this. So trying to think of what might go into both of these. And I'm looking at my options, and 48 is going to have to simplify to, let's see, 4, 11, or 15. And I don't think that 11 or 15 are actually... Yeah, no, I don't even think those go into 48. So I'm going to divide each of these by 12. So 48 divided by 12 is 4. 132 divided by 12 is 11. Nice. Okay, cool. So a little process of elimination there. So all we did was divide each of these by 12 to find an equivalent ratio. So 4 to 11. Okay, a patient is instructed to take 400 milligrams of medicine per dose. If the prescribing doctor gave the patient 8 grams of medicine, how many doses does the patient have? Okay, so 8 grams and their doses are 400 milligrams. So let's turn 8 grams into milligrams. So remember, there are 1,000 milligrams in a gram. So let's just multiply this by 1,000. So this would be 8,000 milligrams. So 8,000 milligrams is the total that they have. And each dose is 400. So we're going to take 8,000 and divide it by 400. Okay, so divide by 400. So 8,000 divided by 400. Don't mind my pen here. Sorry about that. 8,000 divided by 400. Once you plug in your calculator, hope you've got it. It should be 20. So 20 doses is what the patient would have. All right, let's add some fractions. 14/15 plus 1/3. Remember, we need to have common denominators. So rather than multiply them this time, I know that 15 is a multiple of 3. So I'm going to just use 15. So the first fraction is actually going to stay the same. And 1/3, 3 times 5 would get me to 15. So 1 times 5 is 5. So it's the same as 5/15. So add these together and you get 19/15. But it looks like my answer needs to be a mixed number. So 15 goes into 19 once with 4 left over. So 1 and 4/15 would be that as a mixed number. 1 and 4/15. There we go, that first option. Okay, if m is equal to 3 and n is equal to 6, then solve the following equation. So we're going to plug in m equals 3 and n equals 6. So negative m is 3. And then m times n in parentheses will be 3 times negative 6. So we have only multiplication left here, so we can do it really in any order. and just multiply -3 times 3 times -6. So we should definitely get a positive answer because I have two negatives in here. 3 times 3 would be 9, so it'd be -9 times -6. So it looks like we should get a positive 54. Okay, if you had done the parentheses first, which would be really probably the right way to do it with order of operations, then you would get -18 times -3, and you would also get positive 54. Okay, let's change 5 3/8 to a decimal and then simplify completely. Okay, let's see. Oops. So with our decimal, I know our 5 is going to be in our ones place. Okay, that's not going to change. So we have a 5 in the ones place. And then 3/8 is really just 3 divided by 8. So we're just going to do 3 divided by 8 to figure out what this fraction is. So 3 divided by 8. If I plug that in my calculator, I get 375. So 5.375. Let's see, and it looks like that is our third option, 5.375. All right, let's convert kiloliters to milliliters. So for something like this, I might not necessarily know the conversion as it is just off the top of my head. So I use the mnemonic, King Henry died while drinking chocolate milk. So this is all of the prefixes for your metric units. The W here is just my whole unit. So this is if I had like liters or meters or grams. Okay, so I'm going from kiloliters to milliliters. So let's see, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to swoop it 6 times to the right. 6 times to the right. Okay, also, that's the same thing as just multiplying by 1,000,000, 6 times to the right. So I'm going to have a lot of placeholders here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Should be a 5 with 5 zeros after it, so 500,000 milliliters. Evaluate the expression to the nearest hundredth. So 0.25 times 0.25. If I just go ahead and plug that into my calculator, I get 0.0625. So rounding to the nearest hundredth, the 6 is in the hundredth place. So the number next to it, the 2, tells me if I should go up or I should stay. So 2 tells me to stay. So this is just going to be 0.06. What is 15 out of 125 as a percent? So 15 out of 125 is really just the fraction 15 over 125. So we can divide this, and once we have it as a decimal, we can turn it into a percent. Okay, so 15 divided by 125 is 0.12. And see if you remember, what is our rule for turning this into a percentage? 0.12. Okay, so what we have to do is swoop it to the right 2 times. So this is the same thing as 12%. Change 89 hundredths to a fraction. So when we know our place value of decimals, it can make turning them into fractions a lot easier. So 89 hundredths, think about what that would be as a fraction. That's actually just right here, 89 hundredths. Subtract 9/10 minus 1/7. So we need, again, a common denominator. 10 times 7 would be 70. So that is a nice, easy one to use. So our denominator is going to be 70. 10 times 7 got me to 70. So 9 times 7 is 63. So that goes on the top here. 7 times 10 is 70. So 1 times 10 would just be 10. So 63 minus 10 would be 53. So 53/70ths is what we would get when we subtract. All right, if you are still with me in this video, thank you so much, and I hope you are finding this helpful. Okay, we've got a few more questions, handful more questions to work through together today to practice for the HESI exam. Okay, and don't forget to check out the links in the description of the video for more. All right, what is the product of 12 to 5 and 10%? 12 to 5 and 10%. So let's see. 12 to 5. All of my answers are decimals, so let's just turn these into decimals. 12 to 5, we can really just do 12 divided by 5. Okay, 12 divided by 5 would be 2.4. You could just plug that in your calculator, 2.4. And then 10% as a decimal is 0.10. So now we can just use our calculator to multiply this. And this should just give me 0.24. Okay, here's our next question. So let's convert 9 pints to liters. So what's important to know here is that, let's see, for pints to liters. So one thing we want to know is that there's 2 pints in 1 quart. So it looks like we might have to work with a few different conversions here. So 2 pints is equal to 1 quart. And then we know that in 1 liter, 1 liter, there is 1.06 quarts. So if we can convert this to quarts, then we can convert it to liters. Okay, so all we have to do is take our 9 quarts and divide that by 2. Or sorry, 9 pints and divide that by 2. So that would be 4.5 quarts. So 4.5 quarts. So now, to go from quarts to liters, we'll take our 4.5 quarts and we'll just divide this by 1.06. 1.06. So go ahead, plug that in your calculator and divide, and you should get approximately 4.25 liters. 4.25 liters. Okay, the number 20 is approximately 15% of what value? So let's see, approximately 15% of what value? So we could just set this up maybe as a proportion. I just like to use this because it always works when we have percent problems. So 20 out of what value, okay, is equal to approximately 15%. So we may have to round at the end, so 15 out of 100. So from here, we can just cross multiply. 20 times 100 equals 15x. So 2,000 would equal 15x. So when we take 2,000 and divide it by 15, we're going to get approximately 133. So number 20 is approximately 15% of 133. Okay, let's multiply some mixed numbers. So we've done a little bit of this already. Feel free to go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own. I'm going to quickly turn these into improper fractions and then multiply. So 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is the same thing as 5 over 2. And then 4 times 3 is 12 plus 3 more is 15. So we're going to multiply this by 15 over 4. 15 over 4. So it looks like we are just going to multiply across the top and the bottom here. So 5 times 15, that will be 75. And then 2 times 4 is 8. So 75 eighths. Looks like we need to turn it back into a mixed number. So 8 goes into 75 9 times with 3 left over. So 9 and 3 eighths. If 35% of a cattle herd is Ayrshire and the rest is Jersey, and it has 195 jerseys, how many cattle are in the herd? So 35%, okay, so that would mean that 65% are jerseys. So 65% of some number is 195. So take 195 and divide it by, now how do we turn 65% into a decimal? Remember, swoop it twice. So divide it by 0.65. Okay, and when you divide, you should find, okay, so 195 divided by 0.65 question is how many cattle are in a herd. So we are going to find that that is 300. Okay, so always good to just go back and make sure you're answering the question that is asked. So we needed to find the total, and when we do that, we get 300. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, only a couple more questions here. 17/12 plus 1/4, another great one for you to pause the video and practice. Can you get a common denominator? Looks like 12. If we just use 12 as our common denominator, we won't have to change the first one, but 12 is a multiple of 4, so it works. So 17/12 plus 1/4 is the same thing as 3/12. So when I add these together, 17 plus 3 is 20. So 20/12. Now let's turn it into a mixed number. 12 goes into 20 once with 8 left over. So 1 8/20. Oh, 1 8/12. I apologize. 1 8/12. Always keep the denominator the same. Looks like we'll have to simplify this. 8 and 12 we can divide by 4. So 2/3. 1 2/3. Okay, here's our last question. Identify 12:25:30 p.m. in military time. So because this number is 12 or less, it's going to stay the same. So it's just going to be 12:25:30. That's it. Okay, keep it nice and simple for our last question. So thank you so much for sticking along with me. It looks like we had just a tiny little bit of time to spare. So please check out the links in the description of this video and give us a like and a follow if you found this helpful.